Hi everyone. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. All right, let's get started. I'm going to draw a eye, and I'm using Faber-Castell pencils for this, HB 3B and 8B. Feel free to use any brand of pencils that you have. So I'm going to start with drawing an outline for the eye using HB pencil. So since we are not drawing any person's eye here, don't worry about the measurements or the precision. So just draw a simple outline for the eye. You'll notice that I'm leaving a gap over here. That's for the eyelashes. And now I'm going to draw the pupil, the iris and the pupil. So here again, I'm just going to leave a gap over here. And now the eyelid. I'll give you a minute to complete this. All right, now we'll move on to shading. Again, for shading, I'm going to start with HB. And I'm going to start from the inner part of the eye. Use very light strokes. Do not apply pressure. Keep it really light. As you can see, I'm leaving out some space here. All right, now I'm going to move on to 3B and start with the iris and the pupil. So 3B is going to be a bit darker than the previous shade that I used. So we'll use this to draw the outline for the eye. And for the pupil, I'm going to start from here and just draw a circle. And here, I'm going to just do a semicircle over here. And kind of a rectangular shape. And you'll notice that we are going to leave this part white later on. We're not going to shade this part. Okay. I'll just give you a few seconds to catch up on this. All right, now back to your HB. I'm going to start shading the iris. So let's start with the lighter shade first. So start with HB first and then go around the pupil. With kind of line strokes. So you're drawing small lines around the pupil. And then repeat the same. But this time slightly longer lines. And in between, I'm just going to leave a gap over here. And that part will remain white. And that's for the light, reflection of the light. And then continue with your line strokes. And complete your circle. All right, once you've done this, I'm going to move on to the next shade, which is 8B. So take out your 8B and we're going to do the darkest part of the eye, the pupil. this is easy. It's just going to be plain black shading throughout. Just follow the circle, the outline that you created for the circle. Yeah, so that's the pupil. And then we are also going to shade this part. Make this part darker. And repeat the line shading with your 8B pencil at the top of the iris. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to 3B and do the next layer of shading. Continue the lines. You're adding another layer to your previous layer of shading. Don't apply too much pressure. This is a darker shade. Just apply gentle strokes. And while you're doing this, there are a few lines that you will notice that are longer. So just do that. And I'm going to make this part a bit darker. Around the pupil, make it a bit darker. And I'm going to go back to HB and repeat the line shading. Be very gentle with your strokes. All right. I'll give you a few seconds to complete this, and then we'll come back to this. It's still not complete, but we're going to come back to this. Okay, now I'm moving on to shading the eyelids, and I'm using HB again. Again, do not apply pressure, just gentle strokes. So this part, as you can see, I'm leaving it a bit blank over there. Apply very gentle strokes, do not apply pressure. Okay. Similarly, I'm going to do the lower part of the eye and shade using HB again. And also shade this part around the eye. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to 3B and start drawing the outline for the inner part of the eye. So don't draw the complete outline, but just draw it halfway through. And similarly on the other side, I'm just going to draw the outline a little bit over here. And I'm going to start drawing the eyelashes. So for the eyelashes, start from here for the lower part of the eye and draw free strokes from the inner part of the eye to the outside. And you can go over it 2 or 3 times. You can go over the same line 2 or 3 times to make it darker. Or you could do that later using the 8B pencil. So right now I'm just marking the spots for the eyelashes. You can just draw random lines. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as what I'm doing over here. Also, one more thing to notice is that you're drawing the eyelashes from the outer part of the line and not from here. I think one common mistake that everybody does is draw the lashes from here, which looks really weird and unrealistic. And let's move on to the lashes for the upper part. And I would start from this side. So here I'm going to bring it from the inner part of the eye. You can draw 2 or 3 lines together to make it look thicker. Also slightly change the direction. So here you would notice that these are more curved lines and these are straight lines in the middle. And from here onwards, I'm changing the direction of the eyelashes. Okay. From here, I'm going to again draw curved lines. Make sure you're doing free strokes. All right. Now I'm going to move on to HB once again. And I'm going to do this part of the eyelid. Just creating one more layer to complete the drawing because the eyelashes are going above this. So this is going to be easy, just simple shading using HB. Make sure there are no harsh lines anywhere. Do not apply pressure. I'm just extending the shading until the length of the eyelashes. Right now I'm doing the shading really fast. Usually I take a lot more time to do it. It will look much smoother and more realistic the more time you spend on it. All right, so I think we can stop the shading over here. And now I'm going to go back to using 3B and draw a line over here for the eyelid. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comments and I'll take a look and respond as much as I can. As you can notice here, I'm also using the 3B to shade a little bit of the inner part of the eyelid. This will avoid harsh lines and make the drawing look more realistic. Similarly, I'm going to use 3B to shade this part. As you can see, these multiple layers of shading would add a lot of depth to your drawing and make it look really good. Now the upper part, repeat the same. And now the lower part, again repeat the same. Make sure you leave the white space over here. All right, I'll give you a few seconds to complete this. All right. Now using the same 3B, we're going to complete this part of the eye. So first let me draw a line over here. Don't join these two lines. Make sure you leave some gap over here. And then take out your HB again. And let's shade this part. Leave some gap over here and shade in between, and again leave some white space right next to that just to add some detail. And then again I'm going to leave out some white spaces and shade over here. Now I'm continuing the shading to the inner part of the eye. Make sure your strokes are very light. Repeat the same on the other side with your HB. Very light strokes. And I'm leaving some white spaces in between. All right, now I'm going to make the eyelashes a bit darker. So I'm going to take out the 8B and go over this part again with your 8B. Make it darker. And you can make your line thicker as well. And now I'm going to go over the lashes once again, eyelashes. Make it really dark. And as you're doing it, also shade this part darker. Now we're done with the upper eyelids, eyelashes. Now moving on to the lower part of the eye. So for some of the eyelashes here, I'm not going to make the entire part darker, but just the part closer to the eye. And just shade the area around it so it looks more real. I'm also going to make this part a bit more darker using 8B. All right, now back to the pupil and the iris. I'm going to make it a bit more darker. Go for one more layer of shading, especially on the top part. And I'm going to go back to 3B for the rest of the iris. Go for one more layer of shading to make it darker. And this time I'm going to make the outline a bit more clearer. Make the outline clear. Don't draw the outline, but instead, as you're shading, try to make it clear, make the outline clear. Over here, you can draw the outline. All right. Now I'm going back to HB and make this part a little more darker. And another layer. And I'm also going to go for another layer of shading on the eyelid to make it more darker. This is just to add more depth to your drawing. All right, now we're going to complete this part. So here again, just do some bit of shading over here. And also over here, we are not going to leave it entirely white, but shade in some parts of the space. And I'm going to shade over here as well. And mostly leave the middle part white. So this part is going to be white, but I'm just going to shade a bit of an outline. Don't draw an outline, but just shade around it. And also shade this part a little bit darker. Okay. Now I'm going to take out 8B once again. And here, to make it look more real, draw a few eyelashes from the inner part of the eye. Just draw some curved lines over here. You can make it longer if you'd like. Now with the same 8B, I'm just going to go over this line once again to make it darker. And then finally, I'm going to take 3B and shade this part a little darker. Use HB to make sure there's no harsh ending. You can just use 2 or 3 shades to make your shading look smoother. and just some finishing touches. All right. I think we are pretty much done with this. You can continue to go on and make sure your shading looks smooth, and then add some finishing touches to your painting, to your drawing. And also, if you want it to be smoother, you can also use your finger or a piece of paper to just rub it, and it would look smoother. And if you have made a mistake anywhere, don't worry about it. You can always use an eraser to erase it. If you forget the highlights, or if you forget to leave some parts of it white, you can always use this eraser. I'm just going to show you one example where, let's say this part, I want it to be white. You can just go over it later and make it white. So don't worry if you make mistakes. You can always use an eraser to add highlights later. And always make sure to use at least 2 or 3 different shades to add value and depth to your painting or drawing. That would make it look more realistic. I hope you enjoyed this session. Please feel free to share your comments if you're interested in learning any other drawing. See you all soon. Thank you for joining.